Beep, 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 beep. Hot Ham Radio here. Howdy, hamsters. How you doing today? Driving around again in my hoopty-mobile. So I apologize to anybody that tried to come into my chat last night, my live. It was an epic fail. I had it going for a minute, and I don't know what happened. So thank you to anybody who did pop in, and I promise I'm not going to waste your time anymore. I'm going to try and figure out how to do this without going like publicly live and sort of troubleshoot beforehand, if that's possible. Anyways, that being said, I've been thinking a lot today about boundaries. And I've brought this up before in reference to Shanann about how there was a total lack of boundaries that I saw in a lot of her behaviors and a lot of behaviors of her mother. But yeah, this popped into my mind really not because of Shanann. I've been going back and listening to some of the stuff from the weekend that I missed. I was sort of in my own little world all weekend. I am like halfway through that fantastic live with Kelly Watts, the Obsession, and Tabitha Jane, and some other really nice panelists. I thought it was a great discussion, but I still haven't really gotten to the tail end of it, and I'm trying to keep up with the chat. I love going back and actually reading the chat because you really get a feel for the climate of what people are thinking. And you know, it's hard to wrap my mind around this disconnect people seem to have with child abuse, with acknowledging the existence of child abuse. And I wonder if that is because we aren't allowed to talk about it, or we don't have an open forum to truly speak about it other than like Reddit or something. But it's different when you're really speaking to other people on a panel or in a live chat. And you know, I'm really interested in the concepts of like groupthink and like mob mentality. I'm really interested in why people join cults. I don't know, it's always fascinated me, and I always like to play this little game with my own brain where I flip it and reverse it. Like something that I think is totally weird, and like, how can this person think this? I know people who feel that way about politicians, you know, where it's like, how can you possibly support this person? How can you possibly support these views or whatever? You know, and friendships and family relationships sometimes get torn apart for these reasons, just for opinions. So I think it helps to kind of do these little experiments in your brain where you put yourself truly in this other person's mindset as much as you can. And it always benefits me in the end, you know, even if I'm still like, okay, that's wacky, I don't get it, I don't know why you're doing this. But you'll always come out with a little bit of a better understanding of where a person's coming from, their mentality. And I'm not talking about like these people in chat. I'm not talking about like controlled opposition. I'm not talking about paid trolls. I know those things do exist, definitely in this case, and on YouTube and on all social media, but I think there are a lot of people who genuinely think that people like myself and a few others are mommy bashing when we talk about child abuse in this case, okay? And that is very difficult for me to comprehend. And that's And it's difficult for all of us to even deliver our message in these videos because we truly are walking on eggshells. You know? Sometimes we come across as a little like, you know, we'll blurt out something that's like, I'm sorry, this is just true. This is what's happening. But that's because we kind of, you can only go so long holding this stuff in. But it's just been so silenced, particularly in this case. And I get it. It's a very polarizing case, and it's interesting to me because I think there are people who genuinely just, they fight any of these alternative narratives because they think that is the right thing to do. There are good people who disagree vehemently with some of our opinions, but that's fine. I think we can all agree that we're all good people. We want, you know, the best for our families, etc., etc. But these people need to flip it and reverse it, okay? These people who are so against these truths. I'm sorry, they're truths. They're right there, you guys. And if you don't know, you need to go and look. You need to go watch Neek's Peaks. You need to listen to Tabitha. And it goes back to boundaries. Because in some ways, I think we have way too many boundaries when we talk about this or when we don't talk about this. Our walls are up so high with this case. And sometimes we just have to get over it and at least consider what's going on in reality here. You know, I'm not trying to convince people of anything. I'm trying to convey that we're never going to get anywhere as a society. The lives of our children and our grandchildren are not going to get any better if we just have walls up about talking about child abuse, especially if we're not accusing someone who is even alive. Okay? And I feel terrible for Shanann. I think she was failed by everyone around her. And I feel terrible for everybody around her, too. Okay? But that doesn't negate the fact that she was abusing and neglecting her children, okay? If you want examples of real life crimes where things like this, these walls have failed children, there are so many cases. Big true crime cases that I'm sure a lot of you know about. And I don't have the facts right here. It's been like years since I've gone over these cases, and I'm driving, so I can't really reference right now. So my facts might be a little off, but not, my main point will come across, I hope. So, does anybody remember the Hart family murders? The two women, I believe they were out in the Pacific Northwest. They were married. They adopted several children who were placed in foster care for very, iffy reasons, which is a whole other pickle. But basically the neighbors, they were abusing their children, okay? The children were like, I think they were hitting them. They were half starved. And one of the little girls one day climbed out the window or something and told the neighbors that they were being abused. Or I think one of them asked for food several times. And these neighbors were in this predicament of not wanting to overstep the boundary there with their neighbors. And I get that. I get how anyone would feel. But you know what? I wasn't abused as a child. But some of these creators on here who are talking about this, they were abused as a child. But that shouldn't matter. This should immediately click in any of our brains. If a child climbs out their window and comes and sees us next door and tells us that they are being starved or abused, we have to intervene immediately. And I believe these neighbors eventually did involve CPS or call someone, but it was much later, I believe. It was like a couple weeks later. And, you know, time is precious, as we've seen. So, another case. Does anyone remember the Susan Powell, Josh Powell case? One of the most brutal, difficult stories I've ever heard in my entire life. I really recommend that podcast called Cold. It's long, it is fascinating, it is in-depth, and it doesn't even cover every element of the case. It's a rough one. But I don't want to give away the ending. You can look it up if you want, but let's just say CPS was so close to saving those little boys. So close. But they didn't. And I have to think that the reason these little hesitations that these people make, that we as adults, whether we're in CPS or a neighbor or a relative or anybody, whether you're a parent, not a parent, I'm sorry, but if you see it, you have to do something. Because the worst that's going to happen is that we're wrong. Okay? I know that CPS needs reform. I know it's by no means a perfect system at all. But how is it going to get any better if we don't discuss this stuff in relation to true crime, in relation to what has happened to these little babies who had no one else to advocate for them? I know this is a dark topic today, but I think it's so important, okay? Thank y'all for listening, as usual. I'm gonna go back to work now. Catch y'all soon. Beep, 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 beep. Bye-bye.